All right, you may as well feed the beast. Happy Sunday morning, everybody. In light of the fact that there isn't a whole heck of a lot to talk about with regards to any June 1st cuts, still waiting on those hammers to drop. Don't know what's taking so long, but so be it. Let's talk more about Julio Jones because, hey, that's what people are talking about right now, right? And with good reason. Um, there continues to be reason to believe that the Seahawks are at least interested in trading for Julio Jones, and if we did, it would change our team a lot in 2021. So let's keep going on this one. So first, let's talk about Julio Jones's recent comments because these are pretty verifiable and they're pretty interesting. And they definitely pertain to where it seems like he wants to go. So, earlier today, Julio had this to say, or, well, actually, earlier yesterday, Julio had this to say. If traded, Julio Jones wants to go to a contender, as most big name players want. But one other thing I've heard intrigues a big armed QB that can deliver the deep ball. Jones wants to outrun DBs and get underneath the ball. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily all that intriguing. I think every receiver in the NFL wants to make big plays and score long touchdowns. Even possession receivers, I think they dream of those moments when they're able to, get loose down the field for a big play. So I don't know if this is that original. I don't think you would have ever expected to hear Julio say, "Oh, I want a noodle-armed quarterback who can throw me 3-yard passes so I can have, 5 yard per catch average in 2021." But he did say it, and a few people have to a certain and a few people have correctly pointed out that this seems to slot in pretty well with the idea of teaming him up with Russell Wilson. And let's take a look at exactly how true that is. Now, here's the thing. As far as we know, and this can change at any time, there are three teams that are still in the Julio Jones trade sweepstakes. Three teams: the Seahawks, the Patriots, and the Titans. Far as we know, the 49ers are out, the Rams are out, the Ravens are out. Seems like they just couldn't get a deal done that made them happy and they just decided to tap out. I think a lot of those teams were just hoping to get Julio for really cheap and take on his salary, and that would be, enough for Atlanta. And clearly, Atlanta's trying to get a little bit more than that. But those are the three teams. And the quarterbacks for those teams going into 2021 are Russell Wilson, Ryan Tannehill, and Cam Newton with Mac Jones breathing on his neck and loosening up his arm. So let's keep that in mind as we take a look here. And keep in mind, Julio Jones has no power over where he gets traded. He does not have a no trade clause. He is not able to force the team to trade him where he wants to go. He might be able to indicate that he wouldn't be interested in playing for team X or Y, but I don't believe that he would be able to nix a trade by himself. So keep that in mind. Here is an article that PFF wrote last year. So this is after the 2019 season. It ranks all 32 NFL quarterbacks by deep passing performance. So basically, they took a look at every starting quarterback in 2019 and ranked them by their ability to make deep passes. So PFF does pretty good work in these regards. They use premium stats. They really deep dive into all the little things that make a quarterback successful or not, and they try to come up with the rankings. So let's go through. Number one, Russell Wilson. Number one deep thrower in the NFL in 2019 was Russell Wilson. Completed 42.3% of his deep throws, 13.9 yards per attempt, QB rating of almost 120. So he had the second most completions on these passes last season, trailing only Jameis Winston, who threw up a lot of, 500 balls. Wilson tied for second most deep touchdowns. He produced 5 more big time throws than any other quarterback, and he only had one turnover worthy play. So they were really high on his ability to get the deep ball out there in 2019. If you go through this list, we got Watson, we got Gardner Minshew. Wow, wouldn't have expected that. Prescott, Roethlisberger, from 2018 because he missed most of 2019. Kyler Murray, Matt Ryan, Jimmy Garoppolo, Mahomes, Wentz, Rodgers, Winston. Okay, here we go. Ryan Tannehill, near the middle of the pack. 37.8 completion percentage, 14.7 yards per attempt. Still a really good quarterback rating, but overall, they said he was a slightly above average deep passer. Now, unfortunately, we can't really look at Cam Newton here because Cam Newton didn't play in 2019, but like a couple of games, and then he was done. So we can't really find Cam Newton here to compare, but that's 2019. All right, let's go to 2020 because obviously with each year things change. And here's an article I found on a Sports Info Solutions blog. Let me zoom in a little bit here and take a look at how quarterbacks did throwing long passes in the most recent NFL season. For our purposes, we're referring to balls thrown at least 20 yards downfield, unless otherwise stated, must have at least 25 deep pass attempts. So, how did some of these quarterbacks fare on deep throws in 2020? Okay, first stat we're going to look at here is most deep balls attempted. Who threw the most deep balls in 2020? Answer is Tom Brady. Got Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes, Allen, Roethlisberger, Locke, and Stafford. So none of the quarterbacks who we're considering for this video were ranked in the top 8 here in terms of number of deep throws. Okay, let's keep going. Highest on target percentage on your deep passes. So this is a reflection of not just how many you threw, but how accurate were you. Number one, Cam Newton by a lot. Okay, wow. I would not have expected that. I don't think very many people would have. Now, Cam, I don't think he threw very many deep passes, so I understand it's probably like around 30 or something if I had to guess. But 70% completion is really good on throws more than 20 yards down the field. And you're not seeing you're not seeing Wilson or Tannehill on this list either. The league average, by the way, is 52%. So Cam Newton's looking pretty good here. So, you know, what Julio Jones said could, in some regards, refer to Cam Newton. Okay, yeah, he had 28 deep pass attempts in 2020. So he definitely had a smaller sample size, but not an insignificant one. And if you're being straight honest, somebody like Aaron Rodgers probably had a more impressive accuracy on his deep balls because he threw way more, but still, shout out to Cam. All right, let's keep going. Highest touchdown percentage. Who threw the most touchdowns on deep passes? Well, Wilson is ranked here. He's actually ranked down at number 6. He had 9. 15% of his touchdowns were long passes. Now, Dak is ranked here, but he honestly shouldn't be because he only played 5+ games. So Wilson's really 5th. So that's pretty good. We don't see Tannehill here. We don't see Cam Newton here. Wilson was well above average in terms of throwing long touchdowns. And overall, so points earned is one way to determine which quarterbacks have made the largest positive impact while throwing the deep ball. You can read the points earned explanation in full if you want to, but basically it's trying to sum up everything and see who was best at throwing deep passes. Okay, so if you take a look at overall performance, you will see Russell Wilson in the top 10. He comes in at number 8. He added 19 points of value to his team with his deep passes. You will not see Tannehill and you will not see Cam Newton. So once again, it seems to me that if we're choosing between those 3 teams, Julio seems to be maybe indicating that he would rather play with Wilson than Tannehill or Newton. All right, one more stat here. Let's take a look at air yards. Air yards, one of my favorite stats in the NFL. Basically, they calculate how many yards a quarterback threw for, not counting yards after the catch. So just how far the ball flew in the air from the quarterback's hand to the receiver's hands. Tom Brady and Matt Ryan were the league leaders in intended air yards in 2020 in 2020, both over 5,000. Wilson was 6th with over 4,800, so he was one of the league leaders, right up there with the best of them. 4,800 intended air yards. If you scroll down, Ryan Tannehill's right near the middle of the league, 2,029, and his intended air yards per attempt, 8.4, is a little less than Wilson's, although it's pretty comparable, 8.6 to 8.4. And Cam, well, he didn't play every game, but he played almost every game. So his intended air yard count of 2,500 and 6.8 per attempt is clearly not what Julio's indicating he's looking for when he makes comments like, I want a quarterback who can get me the deep ball. Now let's take a look at completed air yards. These are passes that were actually completed only. Once again, Russell Wilson is sixth with just shy of 2,400, although Tannehill is not far behind with 2,300, and his average completed air yards per completion is actually a lot higher, 7.3 to Wilson's 6.2, so that's kind of interesting. And as for Cam, well, he's near the bottom of the league again, less than 1,400, 5.8 yards per completion. So, yeah, Cam Newton, despite his accuracy overall on deep balls, seems to be more of a dink and dunk player at this point in his career. Probably not what Julio was indicating interest in. And yeah, that's pretty much all that needs to be said. If Julio is down to those three quarterbacks that he's going to play with in 2021, then Wilson seems to be the guy who can get him the deep ball. All right. So now that that's out of the way, let's take a look at some of the Julio Jones related rumors because I saw this recently and I didn't pay it that much mind, but the little bit of mind that I paid it was, well, I wasn't thrilled about it. So let's take a look at something that has been floating around the rumor mill. And no, I'm not talking about the rumor that the Seahawks have dropped out of the Julio Jones trade talks because I don't believe those. Now, I don't really believe this one either, but I do want to talk about this one. Um, Jalen and Jacoby of ESPN recently had a podcast where they discussed the Julio Jones trade possibility. You can find the clip on YouTube, I think, where they talk about what they think might happen to Julio in the coming weeks. And one thing that David Jacoby said, and David Jacoby is not necessarily a guy who I expect to have his finger on the pulse of the Seahawks or the NFL or really much of anything in terms of sports. He's more just a guy who talks about stuff that has happened. He said that his understanding is the Seahawks have already offered a first round pick and more for Julio Jones. Okay, I understand that first round picks are not that draft picks in general are not that valuable to Pete Carroll right now because he wants to win right now. Who Julio Jones is going to do a lot more to help us win in 2021 than future draft picks are. So Carroll might be looking at that 2023 first round pick that he could trade for Julio and go, what am I going to do with that? I'm going to retire before that pick matters. I mean, you're going to spend it on a player in 2023. Who knows if they're worth anything in 2023? 2024, yeah, maybe there would be a good player by then or a great player by then, but I'm going to be retired by then. I don't give a crap about that. I want to win now. I want Julio. I could see him thinking like that. I think a lot of old coaches who know they're not going to be around much longer do think like that. That's why you have some of these coaches and GMs inherit really bad situations. Look at, it's not the exact same thing, but look at what Bill O'Brien did to the Texans. He traded a bunch of their picks and just said, you know what, I'm all in to win right now. He got fired, and now the new guy comes in and he's got very little to work with. So I'm not ruling out the possibility that Carroll decides to go balls to the wall and just give up whatever it takes to get the Falcons to just say yes right now. But can we can we make a good deal here? I'm not saying I believe the rumor, mostly because I think Atlanta would have already made the trade if they had an offer for more than a first round pick. But I don't want to be cheap, but can we be frugal here? We already kind of blew up our bank account when we traded for Jamal Adams. And I'm not saying Jamal Adams isn't worth it, but we gave up what he was worth. We did not squeeze the Jets. We did not say, no, we know he wants out. You give him up for a first round pick and a third round pick or GTFO. No, we gave them everything they wanted and then some. Can we squeeze the Falcons? Okay. I mean, there are three teams that still have interest in Julio right now. As I seriously doubt those teams are going to be willing to offer a first round pick or more for Julio. Julio is a 32-year-old wide receiver. He got injured and missed half the season last year, and he already said he's gone. He's already indicated he's done in Atlanta. He wants out. You have leverage, use it. Please do not give up the farm for Julio because we already gave up a farm for Jamal. And I know you pulled good trades in the past. I think the Jimmy Graham trade was good. The Clowney trade was good, given the very little we gave up. But just don't do it this time, okay? And you know what? If the asking price, if the Falcons decide to be a pain in the butt and say, first round pick plus, or else we're not even going to have this conversation, then let it go, okay? I understand, but that's just a situation. Let it go. I don't want to wake up one morning and find out that we traded a first round pick and a third round pick for Julio. You don't have to do that. Who are you bid? I don't believe you're bidding against anyone at that point. I don't. So we'll see if there's any credibility to what David Jacoby said on his podcast. I don't really think that there is, but I'm going to be very unhappy if I find out we traded a first rounder and a third rounder. I know, look, you can make a really good argument that teams and GMs and coaches overvalue draft picks in the NFL. You can, but you cannot tell me that you can't squeeze Atlanta a little bit here. They don't have a ton of leverage here. Technically, yes, they could keep him, but they don't even know if he's going to show up for camp at this point. So work that trade market, try to get him here, but please don't give up another farm. Just don't. Okay. I'm out of here. Peace out. Go Hawks. See you guys later today. Let me know what you think in the comments, but look, I'm just hoping this team is able to swing a reasonable trade for Julio Jones. I don't want to see another farm go to another team from Seattle for a player who is already getting older, already past his prime, and already wants out. See you guys later.